Good afternoon, evening, or probably morning in some cases. I think it's still morning in some parts of the world. I'm Gateway, and eventually we're going to have Sephidos with us. But first, I want to talk about an important piece of the news before we do any of this Diablo jazz, because this is kind of important. It was revealed in the news just yesterday, if I'm not mistaken, that The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt is being delayed until next year. A lot of people are upset about that, and it makes my head kind of want to explode, because I really can't fathom why. And here's the thing of why that is. I recently popped over to my little Game Informer app that I've got over here, because I occasionally read their magazine when they have really neato reveals and stuff like that. And I went to the back issues to check out and see when the reveal for The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt was. And lo and behold, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, squirrels and cows, it was in March of last year that The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt was revealed. And yet, the Wild Hunt is supposed to be 2.5 to 3.5 times larger overall, both in terms of the game world, number of quests, etc., than Assassin of Kings was. Last year, it got announced. So the fact that CD Projekt, not CD Projekt Red for all of those idiots that keep doing that, CD Projekt, the studio, who is working on The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt with their engine, CD Projekt Red, that's the name of the engine, have decided to push this back, and I honestly can't think of any reason why that would be a bad thing. It's a very good thing, because I am aware of the fact that there's probably a good possibility that shortly after, well, I'd say maybe a year or two after Assassins of Kings came out, CD Projekt probably made a pretty decent chunk of money on that and was able to hire some more staff, bring in some new people, etc., and just make the studio better and run smoother in every way possibly imaginable. Which is super cool. However, I don't feel like at any particular point whatsoever they were able to hire enough people, which, again, let's bring this into our little, game developer heads here, guys, to make a game 2.5 to 3.5 times larger in a 2 to 3 year period than the game it took them 5 years to make the last time around. There's no way. We're talking about having to have hired 1,300 people to come into the studio and work and to actually make that even partially feasible. Let alone the fact that if it doesn't matter how many people you've got working on the game, it's also kind of important to bear in mind that the more and more people you get on a project, and the bigger and bigger it becomes, the harder and harder it is to rein all of the details and the finite little things in. Don't believe me? Ask EA about any game they've released in the last, 3 years. It's a garbage fest of bugs and terrible, horrible awfulness that makes everyone want to kill themselves. And it's just because you've got a team of, say, 1,300 people working on the new SimCity. And things are going to just start falling through the cracks because you can't do optimization testing, you can't do a very key thing that I complain excuse me, constantly, that not enough studios do, which is hardware QA testing. That's another huge problem that a lot of studios don't do, is they'll set up all their QA teams with the exact same PC configuration, the exact same Mac configuration, and sometimes, if they're kind enough, the exact same Linux configuration. But there's hardly any variation in graphics cards, sound cards, anything like that, to really get a good, stable bench test of whether or not the product's actually going to work. And that is easily evident when you want to play a game like Battlefield 3, which, even on a system like mine, which is, pretty damn decent, hardly fucking functions. And it's because they did no testing, apparently, virtually no testing, on the 500 series cards at the time. And so it runs like shit on this system. And it's that kind of thing that it bogs down a project and makes it terrible. And you've even got small minor details of things like, well, what if somebody has, say, 4 or 5 months ago's old audio drivers from, Realtek or something like that, and they're using an integrated thing, or they're actually using a dedicated sound card. What do we do then? What happens then? Because that, again, can make or break a game on a system ranging in just a huge variety in terms of its horsepower and things like that. So, stop your whining, stop your complaining. If you want to keep bitching and pissing and moaning about it, I know a fire that you can jump into that would just love to meet you, because that game got announced a year ago, and I literally do not care if they've been working on it since a week after they released Assassin of Kings on the final platform. I don't care. It's not enough time to work on that game and do things with that game, despite CD Projekt Red, that's the engine, not the studio, remember, being released to the fans and everyone being able to mod and do things like that. And I'm sure they've been sending a lot of fantastic feedback back to CD Projekt, the studio. Then it's still not going to be anywhere near enough or big enough in scope and they're not going to have enough feedback to make The Witcher a feasible thing. It's not going to happen, guys, and you need to get over it, because it's a very, very good thing that it's been delayed, and I hope that CD Projekt has some time to work on the game and make it better, make it cooler, etc., 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 because it is, it's a small studio, and they don't have a lot of people, a lot of time, or a lot of leeway, one way or the other, towards being able to work on some of this content. It's not feasible. So, again, it's a super good thing, and I really, really, really hope that everyone stops complaining about it, because they need that game to be a success. It's going to be funding Cyberpunk 2099, which is a huge game I am outrageously excited for still. Or 2077. 2099? I can't remember off the top of my head right now. I'm a terrible person, but that's okay. It needs to fund that game, and it needs to fund the studio and keep the studio going. And when you bear in mind that there are so very few titles that CD Projekt is making money off of, and there is most certainly no particular money that CD Projekt is making off of releasing their engine, CD Projekt Red, out to the community and things like that, they need the Wild Hunt to be a success, and it can't be a buggy mess, and it can't be an ugly bad thing. It needs to function on a lot of systems, it needs to look pretty, it needs to run great, and it needs to have the level of depth and quality that they are known for when it comes to the Witcher series. So please remember that, please bear that in mind, and please, please, please stop fucking complaining about it, because it's a good thing. Now, we'll be back in a couple of minutes. I just wanted to do that news update for you because it was important. So we'll be back soon, and we're going to do some Paragon levels here in Diablo, and then we might hit up Hearthstone to see if we already have that mount or if we need to do some sort of a quest to get the mount. So, check back with you.